Any other questions that perhaps I can answer for you? Yes.
You said that the browser will be disabled. So can they do internet research on their iPad?
Yes, the question is that if the internet browser is not available, can they still do research? They can't do the research on the iPad other than some of the apps that are there. I mean, they've got the CIA Fact Book, they've got encyclopedias and things like that that's available on the iPad. But they'll be able to do internet research just like they can now. They do it at home, they do it in the libraries. We have carts that might be available for some in-school internet research. So they won't lose any access to internet research that they currently have, but they won't have the browser directly on the iPad. And that's for security purposes. Yes?
Just maybe just because I'm a teacher here, so I have a slightly different perspective on it. Is there a way that the teachers will be able to push apps to the students if we find an app, or does that make sense?
Yes, it does. The question is, will teachers be able to push an app to the student iPads if the teacher finds application that he or she thinks would be beneficial, right? The teacher cannot do that, but what would happen is the teacher would then come to us and say, I would like to recommend this app for my students. Mr. Westbrook would check out the app from a technical point of view and some other things, and then the administration would review it for academic quality. And if we both agree with that, then Mr. Westbrook would be able to push that app out onto the iPads for the students. So yes, we have the ability to add those, but we're the only ones that can add those applications. That's a quality control mechanism for us and our students. Yes?
Are the cameras enabled, or is it?
They're enabled. Yeah, because they'll probably be making some movies for presentations, things like that, using iMovie and things like that. So yes, it does have an active camera. Yes. Pardon?
Do you see any issues?
Well, I suppose, yes. I mean, students could use anything inappropriately. So could they film inappropriately in a class or make fun or do something like that? Sure. And if that happens and we know about it, they will be responded to as we would under any other circumstance. So yes, that's certainly a possibility. Any other questions? Yes.
What about the problem of distraction and concentration and the entertainment aspect of an iPad?
Mm-hmm. Well, as I think you probably may have noticed here, we've pretty much eliminated that because the only thing that's there are reference materials, note-taking applications, and the digital textbooks. There is nothing else there to entertain them. They have no Facebook, they have no Twitter, they have no browser, they have no YouTube, there's not much to be, there's no games on it. So unless they're entertained by reading Moby Dick, there's not a whole lot to distract them, frankly. And that's also by design. Yes, Mrs. Robertson?
I just wanted to add that it was very interesting that in the research that was done, I probably myself personally talked to 20 to 30 school systems that had implemented one-to-one, and every single one of them said all that it did was to promote more engagement in the classrooms and not distraction, because this is their world. It only further engaged them with what was going on in the room and what they were learning.
Yes. Yes. The question is there Kindle on the iPad? And yes, there is.
Okay, so can they buy a book from Kindle, or is it something that the teacher would download?
That's something that we would put on there from Kindle, but I want to double check that. Mr. Westbrook, would it be possible for a student with his or her own Kindle account to download their own books? Do we know?
I think it may be.
Okay, so the answer is it may be, so we will check that out in more detail. Good question. It could, yes. Especially, but only if you've given them a credit card. So, if you don't give them a credit card or they don't have their own credit card, they'd be a little hard pressed to actually download or purchase anything. But that is still a good question. So,
does the school control the Evernote accounts? Or those? I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to be interacting with Evernote and NetCloud service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the school has installed those, but they have their own individual accounts so they can keep up with all of their notes. And then if they go home and they need access to it for whatever reason on a different computer, they would have access to their Evernote account.
Will the school monitor and maintain what's going into and out of, or is that more?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, we're not going to be checking everything that might be in Evernote account any more than we do their current notebooks.
Okay.
Per se. So here's I suppose what could happen, and Mr. Westbrook, the question is, you might want to make a note of this, so we'll follow up, is whether or not this would be caught at all in our monitoring and filtering systems. Theoretically, they could have Evernote on a home computer and the internet and put inappropriate things in Evernote and then bring back inappropriate things on the iPad. Right. Now, they can still do that with what they're already bringing to their cell phones and smartphones anyway, but that's beside the point. The question is there anything we can do about that? And I'm not sure I know the complete answer to that. Mr. Westbrook, you may have some notion of that right now, do you?
My initial response is there is no way for us to control that right now.
So that then would be a responsibility on the part of the parent. I will tell you this, though. Because it is a school-issued iPad, the school, every teacher and administrator has absolute right to inspect that iPad at any point and their Evernote account anytime we want to do it. So we can check it if we have reason to do so. I'm not sure we want to start off with a policy of automatically randomly checking people's Evernote accounts. We don't necessarily want to create sort of that kind of feel in our culture as a school, but if we have reason to think there's a problem, we can easily check it, and then we can address it just like we would now with the proper discipleship and discipline. So, good question. Very good question. Yes?
So if they have classmates and they would like to, they would actually email them and send, if you're not too sick, a student could email them.
Yes, and the teacher.
Their notes or something.
Yeah, they could. Yes, they could. In fact, one of the great advantages of this is the student could have notes in class and those students out sick, for example, and the student who's in school could share his or her notebook with the student who's sick, so they would have access to those notes if they wanted to. Or the teacher could do the same thing. Yes. Or email those notes to them. Yes. Oh, good question. You can still access your Evernote notes without internet access. There's an option that says make it available offline, which we'd recommend. That way it's backed up and available locally on the device. Your Notability files are available offline, and the textbooks in whole or in part can be downloaded to the iPad as well. Same thing with the pages of word processing documents, your keynote presentations, those are backed up, but they're also resident on the iPad itself. So there wouldn't be too much that wouldn't be available in both places. For example, even the Notability app, it does two things. It holds the notes on the iPad, but it automatically backs up the notes, if you set it up that way, to Google Drive, so it's available in both locations. So I'm not going to tell you that it's inconceivable and absolutely impossible for them not to be able to get to something, but it's going to be pretty difficult. In fact, I would suggest that they're probably going to have more redundancy and more safeguards now with this than they currently have with regular paper notebooks and notes. We walk down the halls and we see all kinds of notes left in the hallway floors, no names on them, study guides, no names on them. They've lost them. And we don't even know who they belong to. Very good questions. Other questions?
So will they be able to configure Wi-Fi at home, or is there a reason to do that? Or do you just have it set for Wi-Fi here?
Mr. Westbrook? They should be able just to jump on their network at home, right?
Yeah, they'll be able to connect to most home networks.
Okay. Because I saw it, so it will VPN back then, and is that what it does as a phone number?
Right, yeah, the security software uses a VPN primarily, and if that fails, there's a backup global proxy setting on the iPad now that will also try to filter content.
So they'd be able to, and the reason I was asking, it looks like they have the ability to interact with students, BCS students, if they can do that from home.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Can you repeat that about miles
I don't know if I can or not. The question basically was, will they be able to take the iPad home, have it connect to the home network, and then be able to communicate with other students? Did I get your basic question correct?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes.
Yeah. So I was just wondering, I mean, looking at what it was set up for, I'm wondering if they leave here and go, let's say go to a coffee shop or home, would the student have the same capabilities they have here? Yeah.
They do. They do. That's right. I'm sorry? Yes, the teacher can share the homework assignments. For example, the teacher could create an Evernote notebook and share it out, could create a Google Doc as homework and share it. So yes, that can all be on the iPad automatically by sharing by the teacher. I'm sorry, I can. I'm thinking of it more. I wasn't thinking of it that way. Are you saying sharing it inappropriately? Oh, sure. Yeah, they could email homework back and forth and share it inappropriate and cheat. Yes, they do that now, unfortunately. But yes, they can. What they do now is they come on campus early and they sit beside each other and share their homework, or they email from home and do it on their home computers or their smartphones. So yes, I mean, we're not, unfortunately, going to be able to eliminate human nature, and we will deal with those issues just like we do currently. If students are doing the wrong things, we want to disciple them, and when appropriate and as appropriate, also discipline in order to train their character. Yes?
What about their personal iPad, storing their notes from the school issued iPad? Is it we issue?
Well, we don't want them using personal devices in school. They have to use the school-issued device for all the security reasons. Now, if they have a personal device and they have the school device and they email documents from the school device to the personal device, that's fine. They can put anything on their personal device they want, but they can't use the personal device on campus.
Right, I was just brought up the issue if you're at home and you lose internet access or she's got it on the person, her notes.
Right. Well, again, that's why I'm saying that if you're traveling and you don't have internet access, that's why you want to have the settings set to have it resident on the iPad itself. So almost everything that they would need is available offline. Even Google Documents you can set to make it available and to even be edited offline without internet access. The textbooks, you could download the chapters or whole textbooks to take with you in case you don't have internet access. Mr. Westbrook, can you think of any particular documents that students would be using that would not, when it's configured correctly, not be available offline if it needed to be? I mean, they couldn't probably get to the CIA fact book, something like that, right? I mean, but...
Yeah, like Google Earth and other, maybe a couple other apps like that, but not documents yet. I think
Yep.
every document program we have set up on there is available on and offline.
Yeah, so that should not be a problem. It's a setting within the system. You can tell Evernote to automatically make these notebooks available to me offline. Do the same thing with Google. The teacher would say download chapter or whatever, make sure you have it, or download the whole textbook. And so all of those settings are already there. Same thing with Notability when you take the notes. For example, I take all of my personnel interview notes right now. Well, if something happened on my iPad, I don't want to lose all my interview notes from prospective employees, right? So it's syncing automatically to my Google Drive up in the cloud. So it's both on my iPad and on the internet both. So I have it at least two places.
Dr. Mossbacher,
Yes.
will you share about student training?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to train students in the month of December. Here's how you need to use the device itself. So, Mr. Westbrook, this does bring up the question, you're probably already writing this down, but when we do the final configuration for the distribution of the iPads to the students, we need to set all of the defaults to available offline. The Evernote notes, Notability, whatever we need to set, and not depend upon the students to know to do that to the extent that we can. So the default settings would be available offline. All right? Good. All right? Good questions. See, that's why we wanted you to be part of the pilot. All right? Yes, it's interesting. We've already been asked that question. The case that we're providing comes in 4 or 5 flavors, colors. And there's some, one of the things we thought about was the black, boring ones would be for the staff. And we thought there's a blue one that's available. We thought there's a school color, we can use blue, but it says coming soon, so we don't know that's available yet. We could do that. Here's my only concern with it, and it's not a big deal, but it's going to be hard. I mean, we're not going to be able, with 900 students with iPads, taking customized orders for the color of case. And so if we issue different color cases, inevitably, Johnny would prefer this color, Susie's going to prefer this color. They're going to be trying to share cases or trade cases. What's that? Is there I'm not sure to answer that question. We want to be flexible with this, But the more we don't customize and standardize, the more problems it can create for the IT department support, protection. There's a very specific reasons why we've chosen the case we have. Now there are other good cases, but one is moderately priced. It's very durable. It's got a built-in magnet that shuts it off and turns it on automatically. It has a built-in place for the stylus, right? And it has corner protections, and some of them don't. So it protects the corners if they should drop it or whatever, and it's lightweight. And so there were some actual advantages to this, even though they might prefer something else. So right now what I'm going to say is no, at least for the pilot, and that's a question we'll continue to contemplate as we move forward. Because we do want it to be fun for them. So, yes.
You mentioned earlier the keyboards integrated.
Yes.
Is that, you would buy that through review?
No, you can go ahead and buy those yourself. We got a couple that we'd recommend because we've checked into several different ones. The one we would frankly recommend is this one. It's made by the same manufacturer. All right, we know that it's reliable. It works. The Bluetooth is reliable on it, and so our recommendation is, you go ahead and place the order. We'll give you the information to order it. Okay. Now, I don't know, Mr. Westbrook, if there'd be any reason or advantage to us helping them order these or not. I don't know that we want to try to get into that at this point, but probably not. So I guess the answer is we would ask that you purchase this one if you'd like to have it as an option for the students. Yes.
What is that made of?
This is it Targus? On this one, it's Targus. Both cases are Targus.
Some of us make it worry about. And maybe sooner. And maybe
Okay, if you've already popped off, I don't know what to say. Let me think about that one. My temptation, don't hold me to this. My temptation is to say, is it a Bluetooth? Does it have a keyboard on it? Oh, okay. Well, in that case, we're not going to tell you what to do. You don't have to buy just this one. So if you've already purchased one with a Bluetooth case, that's fine. They certainly may use that. All right, so that's fine. Yes. Yes.
whenever they switch over to the January 11th or whatever, push the closest side and focus manually on using the iPad, where you said you won't be using the book.
Yeah, well, here's what we're going to, our suggestion is, and what we're going to ask them to do is we're going to teach them how to use the digital textbooks and give them a period of time to acclimate. You know, everything's harder when you're first learning, right? But once you've mastered it, they'll be pretty quick at this, frankly. Once they've mastered it, that's probably what they're going to prefer. For one thing, they've got 75-pound book bags. And frankly, and I'm not trying to overstate the case, but it's bad for them physically. And it's very disorganized. This has so many advantages. I almost want to, I don't want to say force, but strongly propel them to change habits and to get used to the digital textbooks so that we can eliminate all these heavy textbooks. They can have an iPad, a few supplemental things, and the other advantage of the digital textbook is we can keep it up to date instantaneously for them. It doesn't get so outdated. And so if we can, you know, eliminate these big heavy book bags, we want to. So some people resist change. It's just hard for people. So sometimes you have to almost kind of force the issue for a period of time, but then they become more comfortable. So that would be my encouragement. But if after a period of time they're saying, I just can't use it, or I'm not learning from it, or whatever, then we're not going to tell them they can't use the print textbook. So that's why we'd have them debate. But we want to start off with the assumption you're going to use digital.
So the iPad book and the Harvard book, gives you the same page for page, it doesn't hear the same page.
No, it probably wouldn't be the same page number, I don't believe. Would it?
I think it's pretty, I think
is
so.
Is it pretty close? Okay, maybe it is. Okay. She's saying it is. So. But the good news is because you can search by keyword or title on the iPad anyway, once you knew what the unit title was, you're going to find it instantly on the iPads, even if the page number was different, although you're saying it's pretty much the same. So, okay, great. Any other questions? Yes.
In the beginning of your presentation, there were some things that were said about what we're hoping to accomplish with this.
Yes.
And I'm curious to know if we're valuing a new kind of intelligence, or different kind of intelligence, that we value efficiency and the way being able to extract little bits of information from a large quantity of data available. Is that a different kind of intelligence than what's been valued in?
Well, I'm not a neuroscientist, so I don't want to state more than I'm capable of stating. I don't think it's a new intelligence. I think it's a new skill, and I think that's different. In other words, when you and I were going to school, you had basically 3 sources of information. You had the teacher, you had the library, and you had encyclopedias. That was pretty much it. Now you've got sources almost unlimited. So one of the vital skills is to figure out where to search, how to curate that information, how to validate good information, and what to use and what to reject. That, I don't think that's necessarily, you could call it intelligence, but I really view that more as a skill, because it's still critical thinking. That's the same kind of intelligence. And so I don't want us to overstate what this is. I think we're learning new 21st century skills required with new tools that you have to use. Just like when you move from a horse and buggy, you didn't acquire a new intelligence to drive, you acquired new mechanical skills on how to drive versus, run a buggy with a horse. And so that's how I think we're tending to view it. All the fundamentals of logic, of good logic, critical thinking, all those sort of things are fundamental to any good education from the 1st century to the 21st century. And those things we want to maintain and keep, and simply use the tool as another vehicle to sharpen and enhance those skills and those abilities in that thinking. Am I answering your question? Sure. Okay. All right, I'm going to close it for everyone's time. I'm going to close this in prayer. I'm going to stay down here in case you have some individual questions. But one word of thanks to you. First off, thank you for coming. Thank you for your excellent questions, by the way. And thirdly, I want to thank you in advance for your participation. Your participation is going to be critical to us because we want your feedback. We want to know what's working, what's not working so well. That will help us make the system better. What we want to define over the next several months are best practices. And look, it's inevitable. We are going to stub our toe. We're going to run into things we did not anticipate. There are going to be complications. There are going to be some things that just don't work very well. That is inevitable, and I don't want to tell you that that's not going to be the case. Anytime you implement something of any kind of important or significant change, you're going to have those issues. The beauty of this is working with you, working with your children, working with our teachers, we'll work through those and develop the absolute best program possible for their benefit. So I really appreciate that. So please, if I send you a little survey, take the 5 minutes it takes to give me feedback. If we call together a small coffee group to have some coffee for 30 minutes, if you're able, come and join us for coffee and share the experience. And we're going to do the same thing with some of your kids, okay?